Hey guys, Delve here. Today in Ranked we're having a look at a match between Markenzwiebeck and Epley. Now the match was found on the replay site, that is the Wargame replay site that you can find through the link in the description. And I was interested in the title of it because it said all Maglans no skill. So he is using an Israel deck, and don't worry, he's not going to be spamming Maglans and nothing else. This is actually a really good game between blue and red. Because Epley on the enemy team is using a red 4 deck. Now it is the same map, Hell in a very small place. I do like this map because it gives you a lot of different areas of engagement, a lot of different areas of terrain, which causes all sorts of different types of conflict. So there's usually a little bit of something going on everywhere. Let's have a look at speeding this up. Deploying phase is not usually that interested. I'm always interested in what units or what players are going to start off with, but the exact composition or just team deploy, not so much. Alright, slowing back down. Over on the left he's going in with a Merc of a 3B, he's going right in with a heavy. This thing is of course armed with a grenade launcher, and that especially helps out if you're dealing with infantry in this area. On the right side he's pushing with a group that is comprised of at least one Maglan unit, and these guys are just so damn good. They got the reconnaissance and they got the long range anti-tank weapon, which means that you can practically deny an enemy an area for just a unit of 40 points plus a transport. The transport itself is armed, and it seems that he's using these as a pretty aggressive scouting vehicle. As for the rest, he has a couple of Messiah Ats, a couple of Givatis here, some Achzarit and a Zelda. And he's going to be using the same type on the other flank here to make sure that there are no enemy incursions throughout this terrain. On the left we have the Merkava 3, which is rolling in. It doesn't quite have anything to shoot at yet. And I gotta say, in this terrain I would prefer to have a bit more camouflage on this tank, because I'd say that it just stands out very significantly. Now the Givatis have found their first target. They are going up against a BMP-2, which is armed with the autocannon, so they need help. Merkava 3 pushes forward, comes in for the save, and with that guy out of the way, he can now focus on the Granatomets, but the Merkava 3 should be a bit worried about the Motorschützen. These guys have an RPG-7 VR, damage 24 versus a frontal armor of 21, so it can definitely stand up to it for a while. But I wouldn't want it to stand up for too long. Just look at this guy plowing through the enemy infantry here. It doesn't even care that it's being fired at. It just completely wipes out the Motorschützen, panics them, does take a hit every now and then, but most of which is not that damaging. Over towards the other end, the area is secure, there's not that much going on, and even the middle seems to be relatively quiet. He has it secured with another group of Messiah At, an Achzarit. He has a Tier 5 Blazer reconnaissance vehicle. Now, I may have overlooked these little things, but they are not too bad. 30 points gives you a 13 AP power weapon, also 3 HE. Rate of fire could be a bit better, but it has good optics, pretty good off-road speed and medium stealth, of course being a recon unit. And it's going to have its work cut out for it, because there is suddenly a rush of Red 4 units coming in. We have Motorschützen, we have BMP SP1, as well as a couple of LSTRs. So countering these with a helicopter is not that recommended. It does have some other units here. And the Merkava, which has completed its engagement on this end, is now coming out to help towards the middle of the map. Of course, there is all of this terrain, which is making it quite difficult to fire instantly. You have to cross the terrain first, clear all of these little inclinations, and then you can assault. Talking about assaulting, I think he just one-shotted a Moderna there, and with that, the tank is now completely safe at killing off whatever else Epley has over here. It does take one more hit, barely taking any damage from it, and the Achzarit right next to it is pushing forward with all the machine guns firing in order to suppress the Motorschützen and completely wipe out that push. Now that did bloody his forces a bit. He lost his reconnaissance unit, and he lost some of the units that he had over there, but overall I think that push was significantly more costly for Epley. Merkava 3 has taken some scratches, is going back down the other way of the canyon. On the left side, we have another push coming in from Epley. A couple of LSTR 40s are pushing on Givati. Now Givati are not bad, but LSTRs, especially with that extremely accurate assault rifle, seem to be just plain better, depending on who gets the support and who gets to fire the first couple of shots. Because the moment that these guys get panicked, and these guys only get shaken, it's going to be a close call on this one. It seems that the Givati might stand a chance. He is, however, pushing up with a Ramrecki, so a Browning could open up on the LSTRs as well. There we go. It's trying to do a bit of a drive-by. It's now 3 versus 4 on the Givati. Ramrecki drops off the Bedouins just before it takes a missile. Bedouins are a bit shaken, but otherwise alright. They have not taken any damage. Givati still slugging it out against the LSTRs. The LSTRs now come running in. But it's still a 2v2. Now it's just one LSTR guy left. You never know with these engagements. 2 versus 1. 1 versus 1. This could take forever. And it seems to be a sudden death. Neither party has won. They both disappeared, so that could mean that the Givati have killed off the LSTR. We just don't exactly know. But the Merkava 3 is pushing forward to check it out, see if there are any survivors and kill those off if required. Meanwhile, we got a couple of Messiah Ats providing grenade launcher fire onto the incoming transports. With those incoming transports, and there we go, the LSTR has actually survived. Just one guy limping home. I'm not exactly sure how this guy's limping, but okay. The Wargame's animation's being weird again. Looks like he's being hauled that way. OT-62As as well as BMP-2s putting a lot of pressure on the infantry there, and the Messiah Ats just died. However, the Givatis have made it out, and they might be able to do a flanking maneuver and come into this town, potentially going to push on the CV as the moment that it appears there. Time to bring in some reinforcements. More Achsarids with more Messiah Ats coming in. Maglan covering this area. Of course, a very, very good position for them. They got the long-range Spike MR, they got their own optics, so these, just as the guys on the other side here, do a bit of area control. And they do a fantastic job at it. Once again, Merkava 3B pushing forward. This time around going up against more Motorschützen 90, but look at just how fast these guys go down. Granato match AGS 17, nope, immediately gets wiped out. At this point I would be resupplying the Merkava 3, because it is starting to run out of fuel, and it has expended more than half of its grenade launcher ammo, as well as about 11 rounds of its main gun, so I would definitely try to resupply that thing, because it is just too valuable to lose, and that is exactly what Mark is doing here. He already has a couple of Rios standing by. They're only going to provide spare parts for now. It's better to keep that thing in one piece and resupply it with ammo later, but for now the repairs are more important. A couple of Shayatets are also coming in for reinforcements. They're down to 2 guys out of 10, so they could definitely use a touch. Towards the middle, not too much action going on. The Bedouins seem to be able to spot the Motorschützen. They have their weapons turned off, otherwise they might just be in range with their sniper rifle, the M14 that they carry. It has a range of 1,000. And I'm not exactly sure how much this is. I never really measured that unless I'm actually in-game with my own units. We also have one unit that is being spotted. It looks like a transport. BMP-2 SP1 maybe? Or BMP-1 SP1. It is unfortunately not quite in the direct line of sight for the Maglan, so the Spike cannot take it out. It's just sitting there and the Givatis are going to have a closer look at it. So we're 12 minutes in, and the battle is a bit quiet at this point. Both parties are gearing up for another assault. We have a Merkava 2A coming in, again, one of those units with a grenade launcher. This one, though, is used with standard infantry, so he has the Merkava 2A's transporting both the Messiah Ats as well as the standard infantry. And initially, it was surmised that the Israeli deck was not going to be competitive, because for this group, you're investing a lot of points. This is an 85 point tank with a 10 point infantry unit, so you're just deploying 2 units for 90 points. But it turns out that it actually does work quite well. Not just in ranked, but overall the units seem to be doing quite well. The unit that I identified as a BMP was not correctly identified. It's in fact a Snezga. It's being pushed out, which in turn gets it killed off by both, actually a bit of a double kill there, the Givati and the Maglans. And now we have some Concours which are trying to do area control for red. Don't stand a chance, 1 guy versus 10, so this is just going to be waiting to get killed off. So that's a bit more terrain gain for Mark over here. In the meanwhile, he's still reinforcing the units he has here. The Merkava 3B has been resupplied, repaired and is ready for action. The Zelda pushes forward, gets wiped out by the LSTRs. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same LSTR squad that we saw before. The guys that actually survived, the one guy that came crawling back here. In the back here we have a bit of an engagement. A BMP-2 is trying to be sneaky. It got detected by the Safyan and taken out by the Lahatut Maypats. It did take some damage however, so it probably took a bit of autocannon return fire. You can see that it actually has quite a few scratches on it. But it is alive, can be resupplied and repaired and fight another day. In the meanwhile, Messiah At's pushing forward, trying to get into contact with the infantry here. Instead they find a Moderna. Not good. Time to get some more infantry towards this position and kill off the Moderna. And what I have found with the Israeli infantry is that they tend to lack some really high-end ATGMs. Unless you're going for the immediate anti-tank unit. But other than that, I mean, Rov 890 have a 16 AP weapon. Givati 17 AP. It's not that stellar. A couple of Asarids pushing forward. They take 1 RPG, but it narrowly missed them. There's an actual hit, and that was a Motorschützen 90. Otherwise, this thing would still be alive. It's not just the Motorschützen 90 that are pushing in, it is also the Merkava. It's coming closer. A couple of guys going slightly amphibious here, and we have some more infantry pushing up as well. Shayatet pushing forward, Achsarits retreating, and the Merkava 3 is being kept at range. You don't want to get too close. He also has a Merkava 2A on a sneaky position. It hasn't been detected, but anything that comes in can be side-shotted, like, well, say, a Moderna. Moderna so far hasn't taken that much damage, and it is mostly focusing on killing off the infantry and the transport. That's when the Merkava 2A comes to say hello. It's pushing forward, takes out a transport, and in the meanwhile, the other vehicle, the Moderna here, tries to turn around and gets wiped out by the Merkava 3B. So that's 2 of the, well, supposedly 2 super heavies that the enemy team has. It really depends on the team composition and if he has decided to invest more cars into super heavies. If not, then he has no further super heavies, and that should make life on Mark a bit easier. In the meanwhile, over on the left flank, the Givatis that are trying to flank have taken quite a bit of an airstrike. You can still see the forest ablaze behind them. They're trying to get out. There's just 2 guys in the animation, but according to the hit points it's just 1 guy. And we are still trying to capture the buildings over here. It's not going to be working too well. Not with all of the infantry that's mounting on this structure, on this town. Once again, an engagement between Givati and LSTRs, but this time around it seems that the Givati solidly have the advantage here. They're also going to be backed up by Shayatet 13. So with these guys coming in, and the LSTRs on the run, the Red 4 team is being pushed on heavily, and it seems that they have to give up these structures. Another squad of LSTRs pushes out, so he has really invested a lot of high-end infantry in this town. But unfortunately for Blue, the infantry is not alone. It is very heavily backed up by airstrikes. And that unfortunately cost the last survivors of the Givati their lives. Shayatet pushing forward, punishing heavily the wounded and panicked LSTRs here. They are being forced to retreat, but not before they get killed off. Gulf, the left zone here, has now been secured by a Pekud. And there are some reinforcements coming in, a couple of transports that were left behind, but that can still definitely provide a nice support for the infantry that's now trying to assault these structures here. Let's hope that the OT-62A here is not quite in range yet. And seemingly it isn't, but the LSTRs here are. And I think that, yep, there's AGS in that building. Shaitet are taking grenade launcher fire. They're very, very quickly losing units until they can get into the structure. But they narrowly made it there. One moment later and they would have been engulfed in the flames here. So it's time for the Israeli forces to push up a bit. They have taken control of these structures. The Messiah Ats are moving forward. There's a BTR-152 TCM there in case of anti-air units or in case of helicopters pushing in. But once again, the airstrike comes in and puts the newly captured structures on fire. Achzarit just drives through the flames. It doesn't really mind. It has 10 armor. It doesn't quite care. It does quite care about these Wilks that are coming in. And it doesn't really have the armor to stand up to sustained firepower from Wilks. The buildings that were captured are now completely abandoned as all of the units inside have completely burned up. So it's time to break out some new infantry, some new Achzarits with the Messiah Ats coming in, Zeldas with more infantry. And over towards the middle, it seems that Red has captured the area, but not really working out that well for him, as Mark still has a +1. They're still looking at the Motorschützen. They don't really seem to have had any kind of an engagement here whatsoever. Whereas, I suppose you could say one support vehicle could have easily wiped out the Motorschützen, but then again you don't quite know what is backing up those Motorschützen. We do know that there were a couple of tanks coming in on the left. The fire has gone out, so hopefully, if you're quick, and if the enemy team hasn't already rushed in on this end, you can still recapture these structures. Achzarits on the left standing by. They're almost dropping off their infantry inside a burning forest here. It has just gone out, but is still smoldering. Shaitet 13 ready on the go. Zeldas with more infantry. And it seems that these tanks are still standing by to provide fire on any infantry unit that dares to cross here. So it's time to bring the Merkava 3B forward again and help out on that end. However, we also have a couple of Motorschützen coming in through this area, potentially going around this lake and then coming in once again on this end. So Epley is trying to push on multiple different fronts here. The Ramrecki is being brought forward with more reconnaissance infantry inside. The Anafa here has dropped off more Maglans. And the Maglans, take note that they have disabled the Negev. I'm not exactly sure why he does that. So, Mark, if you're watching this, then please in the comment let me know why exactly you disable the Negev, because I think it's a really, really good machine gun. Really good squad assault weapon. But he has it disabled. He just has the Guilon and the Maglan, the Spike MR ready to fire. But here's the real engagement. The Messiah Ats are taken out by the Wilks and the infantry. And without any good infantry to take out tanks, short of the Givatis and an overwhelming amount of Reds, they are not going to be pushing through here. On the left we do have an Anafa pushing through. It is coming in a sort of a drifty pattern, trying to take out this MI2 just using the onboard machine gun. Because why not? There we go. It is providing a bit of fire. The MI2 is taking a surprising amount of damage. And he actually gets away with the kill by the looks of it. Does take a hit from a jet. Tries to push sideways. Accuracy is now down to 16%, 15%. This MI2 might actually make it out alive. Unfortunately for the MI2, it's not fast enough, but a missile from once and again an aircraft takes out the last little bit of hit points that the Anafa had left. Once again, an airstrike has struck Blue 4. It is now engulfing this area, and this means that all of the infantry that was here is either forced to retreat, not pushing through this area, or has been killed off. Furthermore, Red has pushed a command vehicle into Gulf, neutralizing the income from Mark, but Mark still has control over some other areas. He has neutralized the income from Gulf, correction from Foxtrot, and with that he's still at a solid +1, so he's still holding on there. Merkava 2A apparently does not quite care about being in a completely napalmed area. Pushing forward, infantry dropped off. Infantry just as worried here. And with the Merkava 2A in fire support, these Motorschützen shouldn't be too much of an issue. The Merkava 3, by the way, in case you're wondering, is still around. Once again, completely rearmed, repaired and ready for action. The thing is just that with all of these tree lines, it's quite risky to push a Merkava 3 forward. Because you don't want to be taking fire from 2 Wilks at short range. That will kill you. I'm talking about the Wilks. These guys are oriented with their muzzles and their entire tank towards this end. And that's when the Shayatet 13 are coming in, trying to get a rear shot on the Wilks. If they can get away with that, they can easily wipe them out. But at this time, a Merkava 2 has also been helping out. There's one explosion there. Last Wilk takes another missile from the RPGs, correction, from the B300s from the Shayatets and gets wiped out as well. So good counter there, not a single loss among the Shayatet. Merkava 2, however, does need a bit of repair. It is down to just 3 out of 10 hit points and can really use some resupplying. Talking about resupplying, Mark is not using a fob in this deck. He does have some spare supply trucks which are already depleted. He just parks them right there. And I think that he does this not just to keep them safe, but also as a bit of a tripwire defense. So that if you suddenly find that a resupply vehicle is being captured, you know that there's infantry coming to push on your command vehicle. Over on the right, by the way, he has done something quite interesting. And actually very, very wise, of course. He has the command vehicle surrounded by a couple of Zeldas and Gavati. And over on the right we have a recce in order to spot any kind of aerial push that might come over this ridge. So the CV here should be very safe. In the middle we have a couple of Shermans pushing up. Unfortunately not very successfully. And it seems that they even got taken up by a couple of BMP-1s. Just basically the age-old 2A28 Grom was able to kill off the Shermans. And without further tank support here, he does not have anything to counter them, but at least he knows that the red for opposition on this end is really not that heavy. There's really not that much that he should be worried about. They seem to be trying to get a lock on them. I'm talking about these Maglans, but they might just be out of range, or these guys are too deep into the tree line in order to actually get a missile on them. And once again, the real engagement is going on the left. The Shayatet are forced to retreat yet again due to an enemy airstrike. And while I gotta say Mark doesn't have a lot of AA, he does have some seemingly AA defensive units. These TCMs, I don't consider them real anti-air units. I mean, they can do the job, but I wouldn't use them as my main anti-airplane unit or anti-helo. The other unit that he has over here is a Drakon. Once again, not really good at shooting down enemy aircraft. 6 HE. It fires pretty quickly, but only at a range of almost 2400 meters and with an accuracy of 45%. Detract from that the ECM that enemy aircraft can put up, and you're faced with an enemy aircraft or with an AA unit that doesn't really get the job done. And this is where you can overwhelm Blue 4, especially Israel in this situation. Just keep airstriking them. Especially if they only have this little in the sense of enemy air or anti-air, it is really easy to just continuously strike them, as you can see that Epley has been doing. He hit them there, hit them here, he hit this area, he hit them over there. And he's basically continually, with napalm, just denying the area towards the enemy. We have... Yep, that was a kill by the Maglan. No, wasn't a kill by the Maglans. Who killed off that thing? The Maypats. Here. Helo flew over. It popped already 3 missiles. And it is just patrolling the line here. Bedouins are once again looking at a target, not opening fire. At this range, the Motorschützen might be able to return fire with their RPK if they can get a good look at these guys. But the Bedouins have very good stealth, meaning that they're not that likely to get detected. The Shayatet 13 are now pushing forward. They're coming in from the rear, hoping to get a command vehicle hit here. Immediately wiping out an LSTR squad as they go. The LSTR against the Givati are a pretty fair match, but the LSTR against a group of Shayatet 13, not so much. They just got completely wiped out, and unfortunately, once again, a napalm strike hit the Shayatet, wiping out one more squad. Let's see, we lost a Ram Recce somewhere. It's not that one. This one, by the way, still has infantry inside. Surprise, surprise. Let's see. SPW-80 is coming in. Yet another push comes in. And we have a bit of rocket artillery coming in. It's trying to suppress all of these heavies that are hiding in the tree line. You can see a Merkava 2A, another one taking damage. The Merkava 3 has also taken a bit of a scratch. Fortunately, the damage is minor. And with that, they can immediately retake that position if he wants to. Could have been way worse. He could have lost one or two Merkava 2As and potentially the Merkava 3, although that's not too likely. He has, in the meanwhile, pushed up with a couple of M51 Shermans. These guys are just 15-point tanks, 270 kilometer autonomy, very, very slow, bad optics, and they are just getting wiped out instantly by the Wilks, barely getting any return shots on them. The rate of fire, normally at 8 rounds a minute, is not too bad, but when they're panicked, they are not going to be very successful at it. Over on the left, once again, a push coming in from Epley using LSTRs. Merkava 2A now being forced to do a short-range engagement. It narrowly survives an engagement with the LSTRs there. It's down to just 3 rounds on the main gun, but also, more importantly, down to 1 hit point. And I gotta say, Epley did execute this attack quite nicely, as he was trying to first suppress the units here, damage them, stun them, and then come in with the infantry and try to wipe them out entirely. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work. As you can see, the units have been all repaired, and they are immediately retaking the lost ground. And I gotta say, Messiah Ats are really, really brave units, but sometimes a bit on the stupid end, in the sense that they try to engage a tank with a grenade launcher. Leave that to the tanks. I would prefer it if my unit, which is going to be grossly ineffective against the tank, doesn't even try to fire at a tank and instead remain concealed. Unfortunately, they just want to get their shots off. Another squad of Maglans pushing forward. That's the... I was going to say that's the Maglan squad that was over here, but it's instead another squad. And with their spotting capability and the fire support from the Merkava 2As, the infantry here does not stand a chance. They're getting completely wiped out. Shayatet 13 once again pushing forward. The Red Force CV has either been killed off or is moving away. And with that, Mark is at a +2. Shayatet run into a transport, not a problem there, immediately gets wiped out, leaving them on just 4 rounds for their anti-tank weapon. And of course we have another MiG-912 coming in, which gets evac'd as they don't quite know where the target is. Barak tries to shoot it down, doesn't quite get the kill by the looks of it, but pays dearly as the Barak itself goes down, unfortunately. And we have another Anafa with potentially a Maglan flanking around, dropping off the Maglan infantry over on this side, and also going to be helping out the Shayatet here. There's a kill on the Snezga. Maglans are still being detected though. That could be a problem, as yet another MiG-912A could come in, drop some napalm on them and immediately wipe them out with one bombing run. There we go, they're no longer detected. Whatever was detecting them has backed off, and it could be this unit that was detecting them. Shayatet 13, just 5 guys left, 3 rounds on their anti-tank weapon. They do have plenty of anti-infantry ammunition, but their anti-tank weapon could be more important. They are once again firing, killing off yet another vehicle, immediately taking machine gun fire from a BTR. There's just another potentially motor shoots in the squad behind them there. Don't quite have a good ID on them yet. Maglan's dropped off, another group of Shayatet 13s coming in. And if you really want to hurt Israel, try hunting down these guys. At 30 points per squad, they are quite expensive. And the same goes for the Maglans. If I was fighting Israel, I would try to hunt down the highly valuable units. Sure, they are fantastic at what they do, but they're also really expensive to replace, and you don't get an infinite amount of them. So once those highly expensive units are down, you actually have a much better chance of winning the match, because you're basically pulled much of the punch out of the Israeli deck by then. Markova 2As, both of which have basically survived the entire match, are pushing forward, trying to get close enough to the town in order to provide fire support for the infantry, which is also coming in. A couple more Zeldas, once again pushing forward. They're not offloading their infantry too close. The Merkavers have been detected, so we do know that something is coming in for red. And over on the right, what's he doing here? He has an Asher A circling over the water. Not exactly sure what his intention is here, but he might try to snipe another command vehicle. Once again, LSTRs trying to defend themselves against the fire from the Zelda. And over on the other side, we have an engagement from the Shayetet versus Motorschützen, which are being engaged from multiple different angles. But the AGS here are basically so stealthy that the Merkava A just almost drove into their structure and didn't even see them. It's now backing off, although a Merkava 2A shouldn't really be that concerned about AGS. Givati pushing forward, and over on the edge we have a Maglan, once again pushing forward, and again providing denial of area opportunities here. Immediately with a spike wipes out one transport as more AGS were about to come in. Second missile in the air, really accurate fire from these guys. Base accuracy of 65%, and with a 21 points of armor penetration they just wipe out that thing instantly. Lots of infantry still inside here. Merkava 2A have their work cut out for them. They're punishing these guys with whatever they have. Main guns, machine guns, grenade launchers. The Givatis are also trying to help out. The Bedouins with their sniper can finally get to work. But once again, an airstrike comes in and makes life a lot more difficult on the Israeli here. On the right there still seems to be a bit of an engagement. LSTRs are still being suppressed by the Zelda. Maglans versus Motorschützen. This time around they do get to use both the Gilon and the Maglev. Oh, correction, the Negev. And together they don't really have that much trouble chewing through the Motorschützen here. If they do, and if anything is left, the Merkava 3B comes in and kills off what anything has survived. Unfortunately, they don't quite have a line of sight on the LSTR, so they don't get the kill there. But it doesn't really matter, as Mark has already made the 400 point barrier. He's getting really close to winning. There's just 3 minutes left in this replay. And while he doesn't quite make another push, he does have a large amount of map control. Let's just zoom out a bit. You can see that he has most of Gulf under his control. Foxtrot is quite heavily secured. And this tree line is not an area where you'd like to approach anytime soon. Barak 2 pushing forward with a Kurnas. The Kurnas, unfortunately, there we go. It is getting ready to bomb something. It does have those electro-optical bombs. It has dropped off one bomb. There we go. He's trying to drop on this tree line. Nice spread there. Unfortunately, he did lose the Kurnas. Barak didn't take any damage, but I believe they just completely disappeared. I'm not sure if this is a Soviet jet or not, but I believe not. I think that this is the Kurnas that has crashed inside the mountain top there. But Ovait engaging with the Motorschützen, not that much going on, just a 3v1. The Ovait are more superior in veterancy, but it doesn't really win them the fight. In the middle, we finally have a bit of an engagement, as a Magach 7 Gimel is pushing forward, providing finally some killing power to deal with those transports, which have been killing off the Shermans earlier in the match. Fires a couple of rounds, easy kills, they're just transport, very lightly armored, very easy to penetrate, and very easy to kill off. Over here, unfortunately, the Maglans just died. Not exactly sure what hit them, but something definitely seems to have put them on fire, or that potentially was a transport that was killed off as a last action by the Maglans. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Now look at the spotting power of the Bedouins here. Once again, they have their weapons turned off, but they know exactly where the Motorschützen are, and once again, they're providing reconnaissance capability for the initial incoming transports here, so that the surviving units can still provide support. Merkava 3B still kept in reserve. Merkava 2As are both not going to be that useful. They still have something left on the grenade launcher, not too much, and with their main gun, the second one just has 2 rounds left, but they're going to have to rely on these Oshkoshes to resupply them very, very quickly in order to deal with these transports. You gotta give credit to Epley here. He is just not backing down. Even if the enemy has a 484 points out of 500, he is just not holding back. He's still pushing forward, still trying to come in. And talking about moving in, he is also coming in with a Twardy. A bit on the late end, as there's just 20 seconds left in the replay, because that is when Mark is going to hit that marker. He's going to hit the 500 points. The Merkava 2As, once again, providing a lot of grenade launcher support, but without any good spotting capability, they don't quite know what to shoot at, and it doesn't really matter. Match is over. So, Markenzwiebeck, 3,215 gained, 2,000 losses, and I think that most of the losses came instead from the air support, instead of from direct fire. Let's have a look. As for kills, the Maglans did a pretty good job. They got a couple of kills on transports, some infantry here and there. The Terran 5 Blazer, the one that was in the middle of the map, killed off some reconnaissance units, some transports, even a reconnaissance infantry unit. Look at the Merkava 3B. This thing was a significant problem for Red. Granatomets, Motorschützen, transports, a Moderna. Just killing off the Moderna made its price back. LSTRs, Motorschützen, Granatomets, another Moderna, and a Wilk. One of the most important units in this game as far as damage done. I'm also quite interested in what he lost and what he lost it to. Look at this, this is one of the Merkava 2s before I skip down to the end. A couple of transports, some infantry kills. Let's see about... Yep, there's the other one. LSTRs, Wilk, Granatomets. These Merkava 2As are just really, really good. Just make sure you keep them supplied with main ammunition ammo, because they only carry 9 of that. Getting on to the losses, I think we're going to see quite a few losses due to air support. The MiG 29912A killed off one group of Givati. It's not that much actually. Shayatet 13. I'd expected most of these losses to come from the air support, but it wasn't that bad. Instead, what got most of the guys killed seems to have been Wilks. Wilks and LSTRs. That seems to be the pattern here. LSTRs killed off a Zelda, an Achsarit, a Terran 5 Blazer, Givati, Zelda, Messiah At, Merkava 2A, so one of them did go down. More Givati, Motorschützen killed off Messiah Ats. Yep, and there's the Wilks. Bedouins, Shermans, this was the engagement in the middle. Shermans got killed off by the Wilks. The Wilks had really easy time killing those guys. Not that much of a problem. BMP-2s killed off some transports. Actually, it's the same BMP-2 that killed off all of these transports. A couple of Granatomet kills here and there. Okay, so coming back on my initial statement, the infantry did not take that much damage from the MiG-912s. They did, however, do a fantastic job suppressing the Israeli forces and deterring them from moving up, or just wiping them out entirely. So I hope you enjoyed that game. For me, it showed me that the Israeli deck is definitely viable in an engagement where you have ranked. It does work, it just is very expensive to run. But don't underestimate Merkava 2As and 3As, because they are fantastic at killing off, Merkava 3Bs, they're fantastic at killing off infantry and providing a lot of support for their own infantry. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the match. Let me know what your thoughts are. Any further replays will be ranked on Fridays. So if you have a good ranked replay, either send it to me or link it up through the link in the description down below. and I look forward to being able to cast your ranked replay on this channel. For now, thank you for watching, hope you had fun, and I'll see you next video.